Leagues is about to be upon us in a few days, and the hype is massive this time. Leagues is a temporary Iron Man locked game mode in which you are locked to specific areas, unlocking more by completing various tasks of varying difficulty. XP rates are massively buffed, and there are relics that can be unlocked for massive buffs to skills, utility, and combat. This Leagues boasts a unique Echo boss fight in each region, with incredibly powerful item drops. Decision making is really important in Leagues, so let's go over what you need to know to make your time with Leagues the most enjoyable. For the most part, keep in mind that this is my perspective, having fun. This is not a min-maxing point spreadsheet, and choosing something that is not a meta pick to have more fun elsewhere is never a bad idea. Let's first go over the areas. We all are going to start with Mistlin and Karamja unlocked to begin with. These starter areas do not come with an Echo boss variant. Completing tasks will allow us to choose a first, second, and third region. Not only is your choice of regions important, but also the order you pick them is important as well, as picking a first region without much early game boost can make your experience a lot harder. Important things to note this time around are that each raid can drop a mega rare note instead of your typical Scythe, T-Bow, or Shadow. This means every raid has access to every single mega rare item, meaning you aren't locked to a specific raid for a specific build. Raids also drop purples to every single person in the team should anyone roll one, meaning group raids are going to farm purples extremely quickly. One final note is that any boss that drops a partial drop that needs to be combined with something to finish it, Ultor Rings, Rancor, Avernic, are all dropped as the completed item this league. That means if you pick Mauritania, you won't need Asgarnia to finish an Avernic Defender, for example. Mauritania. This area has an incredible amount of value for combat-related activities as well as skilling. Theater of Blood is here, of course, but also Araxor, Nightmare, and of course Echo Grotesques. Gargalons drop the Gloves of the Damned, doubling the effect of Barrow sets. Now the only relevant set is, of course, Darox, giving a double damage bonus. Darox is the highest possible DPS in Leagues over any other build at 1 HP, making it a very powerful choice for melee builds. Araxor also drops the Amulet of Rancor and Noxious Halberd. Trouble Brewing, Sepulchre, and the Slayer Tower are all in this region for massive skilling gains, as well as Blood Shards for Blood Fury. Overall, this is a must-pick for melee, and a solid option for the other builds as well. Desert. This area's Echo boss is Calphite Queen, and she drops the Drygore Blowpipe, a Fang Blowpipe hybrid. This is a very good flex ranged weapon for other builds, and a solid option for ranging early. The desert also has Toa, dropping Mory, Fang, and Lightbearer. Alcarid has the Mage Training Arena for solid mage gear and training. This is massively buffed from prior leagues, by the way. And the Gem Stall for easy crafting, training, and money. Temperos is also down here for solid fishing gains. The desert seems like an excellent ranged build choice, but can easily accommodate the other styles as well. Wilderness. Now this is not my cup of tea, but it's a great choice for overall points for Dragon Cup grinding. The Wilderness includes Echo KBD, who drops the Thunder Khopesh, and the 1000 Dragon Ward. The Khopesh is a souped-up Void Waker, calling a double lightning attack when you spec with it, as well as AoE lightning strikes as you use auto attacks. Amazing for Wildy Slayer tasks. The Ward is simply an Avernic with decent defensive stats that also protects you from all status effects. It's a bit less important, but solid stats regardless. This area has the Chaos Altar for rapid prayer training, as well as Black Chinchampas, Dark Crabs, Zombie Pirates, and buffed Wilderness Agility. Keep in mind a lot of builds can kill you in a single game tick, and the Wilderness is likely going to be a lot more active than the last leagues. Asgarnia. This area includes the God Wars Dungeon and Cerberus, which is very important for both melee and ranged builds for amazing spec weapons. Echo Cerberus is this area's boss, and he drops a combination of all 4 God Swords, the Dog Sword. This is a very powerful DPS spec weapon and defense training weapon all in one. Next also drops the ZCB and Torva armor, making this area important for spec relic users in general. This area also includes the Warriors Guild for defenders and a gem stall in Falador that can be used for money and crafting. Don't forget we also get Pest Control for Void here, which is actually the best DPS gear for range this league, even over Mory. Fremennik? Fremi has the DKs dropping powerful jewelry, so of course the Echo boss is the DKs dropping an amulet and ring with incredibly souped up stats. The Amulet of the Monarchs alone has more range strength than all ranged boosting items combined, as well as the Emperor ring with plus 15 range strength as well. Maximum range strength in max bis range gear in the normal game is plus 21 before weapons. In leagues with this jewelry alone, it's at plus 30. These both in total also provide plus 15% magic damage, which is absolutely ridiculous. Any ranged build or magic build practically has to take this region for the sheer power of these items. Melee is also boosted a ton, but it's a bit less extreme over the Altor Ring and Rancor if you have those from other regions, making this a potential skip for melee builds. Fremi also includes Vorkath, who drops a ton of useful items, including Dragon Darts. Kandarin. This is by far the weakest region, and there's very little reason to pick it. This Echo boss is Thermi, dropping the Devil's Element offhand. This boosts elemental weaknesses by 2 times where applicable. Very few bosses in the game have elemental weaknesses, and very few of them are in raids. Piety is unlocked here, but this can be avoided with the Grimoire Relic. There's a lot of general decent training areas, but overall this region has very little to offer compared to others. Tyranwin. The Elflands this time have Echo Hunyef, dropping the Crystal Blessing. This makes Crystal Armor's bonus apply to melee gear. This is dramatically better than Torva, usually roughly 10% better DPS overall. They've stated that in fighting him, there will be no prep phase, and you'll be handed a full prep and full tier 3 arsenal to fight him with. Zulrah is in this area with the Blowpipe, which actually has more range strength than the Calphite Queen's Pipe, and full Trident drops. This area has a decent amount of utility for skilling by giving you access to Prif, with Elf Thieving, Zulcano, the Ore Mines, and Crystal Imps. Overall, I think this area is a bit too small to benefit any build much. Only melee really sees a ton of benefit out of that Crystal Armor, and even then, picking a different region might benefit the account more. Zaya. Hespori Blicky. Hespori Blicky. This is not a drill. Yeah, they made Hespori the Echo boss here. And it drops a Super Salamander. It has a 5-tick attack speed. It is not powerful, but it is very funny. There are a lot of reasons to pick Zaya, but the Echo boss is definitely not it. What this region does offer is Chambers, Konar, and her Slayer dungeon with Hydra, Wintertot, Sarachnis, and various means of training all kinds of skills in the different subregions. This region is particularly good for mages who can get both a Shadow and Ancestral Robes here, but also as a potential flex for a melee build with the plethora of good spec weapons, Bulwark, Claws, and Elder Maul. Varlamore. This is actually a new area added with this league, and it has the most dangerous Echo boss, Echo Soul. This is the only boss that they have put in the Grandmaster tier of difficulty, meaning he hopefully will be a PVMer's wet dream. He will not include the waves, with us immediately jumping in and fighting him again after dropping. He drops 2 unique items, the Sunlight Bracers, which are gloves with fairly high stats in general that simply double all healing from all sources, including things like Redemption, Blood Fury, etc. As well as the Sunlight Spear, a 2-handed spear shield combo that has a unique stacking special attack similar to the Soul Reaper Axe that can unleash a massive AoE spec that scales with prayer bonus after 7 auto attacks. The weapon is fairly weak in comparison to other options actually, and those gloves, while useful, are a bit boring in design. Besides just Soul, this area has very much to offer. Colosseum in general is an amazing money generator, as well as providing Echo Boots and the Glaive, and Quiver of course. Moons has some very powerful early game gear sets, and Vardorvis is actually a part of this region this time as well. Early skilling options are ridiculous here, boasting the greatest stocked gem stall in the game, House Thieving, Prayer Training, Prayer Mining, Sulfur Nagas for combat XP, and much more. This region does not particularly boost any build dramatically, but it will be a very fun region to mess with regardless. This chart has every area and their unique boss drops as well. Very useful to refer to in a pinch. I'll leave a link to the wiki page that includes this in the description. Combat Masteries. So this is a new system that they are rolling out with this league. Effectively, this is a separate relic system purely for combat and unlocked through doing very specific combat tasks. These are actually incredibly easy to unlock, and you can feasibly unlock your 2-tick attack speed for your style in the first day without much effort. Defeat a giant, literally kill a hill giant. Defeat 10 monsters over 100 combat. Kill Scurious. Kill a monster requiring 55 Slayer. Defeat Jad, and reach 100 combat is all that is needed for the final tier. The bonus 4 points are for killing your Echo bosses and defeating Zuck. Each combat style has up to 6 points that can be spent on it, with a total of 10 points being possible throughout the league. Each of these unlocks also unlocks a passive ability, saving weapon charges into healing more, into increased accuracy, into damage reduction, into prayer point increase, and finally into prayer penetration. So let's go over each build. For melee, so these unlocks are all about generating additional attacks. The first is a 25% chance to roll twice and take the higher roll, which is actually quite a big increase in average DPS. The second is a 10% chance to generate an echo hit, which deals 50% of your initial hit. This is actually a lot less DPS than the first tier, but it has the potential to generate a massive hit, which is a lot of fun. Tier 3 is 80% attack speed rounded down, so this will make your early 4-tick weapons like Rune Scimitar quite a bit stronger. Tier 4 is a 5% chance to heal 40% of damage dealt. This is equivalent to 1/3 of a Blood Fury permanently attached to yourself, but you're healing larger amounts, just more rarely. This in combination with echo attacks means we will be healing a lot. Tier 5 is the important one, 50% attack speed rounded down. So this is a 2-tick Scythe and 3-tick Darok set. Finally, Tier 6 is Echoes are increased to a 20% chance, and they can chain off each other up to 8 times. This is a 1 in 80,000 chance to occur, so you'll probably see that maybe once during the whole league. But basically, this is a relatively small increase to DPS, but allows for some crazy RNG boss kill times. It'll be a lot of fun to use. Overall, melee is a very solid choice, but the next one caught my eye as a lot stronger, which is ranged. The last tier of this is our important one. So the first is damage rolls. These have a minimum of 30% of your max hit, which is incredibly good with fast weapons. Tier 2 is each subsequent ranged hit has its max hit increased by 5%, stacking up to 20% and then resetting. And this can probably be gamed with stronger weapons on the last hit for a bit more damage. Third is faster attack speed as before. This one is important though because you have 2-tick weapons for ranged that will decrease down to 1-tick already at tier 3, meaning you have your 1-tick blowpipe within seconds of starting the game. Fourth is every 5th ranged hit heals 5 hit points. This is reliable HP, meaning you can use it for tick eats, assuming you hit, which is kind of interesting. Fifth is the same as melee, your 2-tick T-bow, 2-tick ZCP, extremely powerful. Finally is the arguably best upgrade of any style. Ranged attacks no longer miss. Oh no, Mr. Bloat has 800 range defense. Good thing my blowpipe doesn't care. Oh, what's this? Soul has 825. 2-tick Turbo says goodbye. Range is stupidly busted good this time, and that's why. All right, magic. This appears to be the weakest build this time around, which is convenient because I picked it last time. The first tier is when you roll above 90% of your max hit, you hit 50% harder. Decent when you hit, but that is really rare for it to proc. Second is magic max hit is increased by 5% per tick in between attacks. Now, we don't fully know how this is calculated. Is it lost ticks when you aren't on cooldown or just any ticks between attacks? I don't really care. It's super bad either way. This is so weak compared to any of the other upgrades on the other weapon styles. Tier 3 is that faster attack speed like the others. Tier 4 is when you roll over 90% of your max hit, you heal 10% of what is dealt. Magic actually seems to heal far more than the other styles, and this would ideally stack with Blood Barrage. Fifth is the same as the others, 2-tick Shadow and Barrage. Finally is max hit is increased by 1% for every 100 hit points remaining on target, up to 10%. You couldn't even give us more if they had more health, really. Okay. If target is below max hit of your weapon, you max. This is so weak compared to the magic of last leagues, it makes me think they just saw that it had a high pick rate and they wanted to squash it. Hey, at least we have the Devil's Element to cast a 100 max hit Fire Surge at Ice Demon. Magic just doesn't seem to be it this time. It's unlucky. It's unlucky. All right, let's move on to the different relics this time around. So for tier 1, do you want to buff mining, woodcutting, or both fishing and hunter, and in magnitudes larger than the others? Yeah, the Harpoon Relic is absurdly better than the other options. It affects multiple skills in major ways and benefits you the most. The Hunter perks are incredibly valuable with faster chins and traps that never fail. It's especially good with the Hunter Guild in Varlamore. The Woodcutting Relic's additional skill buff to firemaking being impossible to fail lighting a log on fire is bafflingly bad. AFK and Karambwan with the Fishing Relic will be a great source of food and a benefit to a later relic, which we will talk about. For tier 2 relics, Forager is my clear choice out of the 3. Buffing herb is always solid for any Iron Man related game mode, and the collection of herbs as you gather resources means that our little AFK fishing relic will get a ton of mileage. Saving secondaries while making potions 90% of the time and making 4-dose potions means I will never have to do an herb run over the entire league. I also can train herb with mixology using only the herbs I found if I need the level to make brews or something. There's potentially tech with filling the pouch with garbage herbs like guams before you go train your skills for guaranteed rolls at higher tier herbs, but I have no idea if it will work like that. Buffing agility so you can passively train it is kind of nice, but I already have access to Sepulchre with my regions, and agility really isn't that useful anyways with unlimited run energy. Dodgy deals for thieving massive amounts of GP and blood shards is definitely interesting, but it's a clear second choice over buffing herb. Being able to AFK at Tizar, who have no coin pouches, is also very enticing. It's assuming you have ice gloves to be able to pickpocket them at all. For tier 3 relics, these are all teleport relics. Teleport to a bank, fairy ring, or everything I just said in every single clue location in the game. Okay, so just like the last tier, this has a clear best relic. All of these choices are irrelevant because Clue Compass does what the other relics do. If you want to teleport to a bank, you just teleport to Shiloh Clue Stash. Ta-da, bank acquired. There's a stash in the Enchanted Valley nearby a fairy ring as well, so you have that covered. If you don't even want to do clues, you can just get a decent clue step and leave it as a teleport option for later. The stash near Barrows Brothers seems particularly abusable, especially with Last Recall. For tier 4 relics, Golden God is a solid relic for prayer training and gathering money, but I'm going to be choosing Reloaded, allowing me to take dodgy deals instead. Thieving options in my region include Vyres for blood shards, Wealthy Citizens for massive amounts of GP, and Tizar with the ice gloves from Asgarnia for completely AFK training, because they don't have coin pouches. The prayer training from Golden God only really seems exceptional if you have a house altar or picked wildy, as Ectofuntus and Varlamore prayer likely won't count as altars for training. Equilibrium is the ever-present boring pick. They buffed it quite a bit from last time with a 20% buff if the skill being trained is your lowest. This is still really weak and boring, honestly. For tier 5 relics, these are incredibly hard to choose from. Production Master is insanely strong just like last time, especially for making rapid money from gem stalls. Treasure Arbiter for clue scrolls is not for me, but it is always a popular choice. Slayer Master, making it so you're on task all the time, including boss tasks, makes it such a clear choice for me. On task for all of God Wars Dungeon, Barrows Brothers, etc. is amazing. Even for silly things like Sulfur Nagas or Moxie will help a ton. I think it's the clear choice if you're going to be doing a lot of PVM. For tier 6, both of these are really good. Recall is different from last leagues because it remembers what your stats were before locking it in. So this is great for abusing specs on bosses and recalling back for free spec energy, or teleporting to Barrows chests a lot since I want that full Darok set. Banker's Note is good for skillers and having infinite supplies. I'm not worried about infinite supplies with the Soul Bracers being extremely OP, so the Note in PVM shouldn't be relevant to my build, really. I also chose the Note last leagues, so it'll be nice to do something a little different. For tier 7 relics, which is actually an entirely new tier, they didn't have this last time. These are different playstyle relics, so it's hard to compare them to each other. So one is for people who have time to play leagues in PVM, and the other is for someone who has like 5 minutes a day to play. Depending on which one you fall on, it's going to be your clear choice. I'm picking Grimoire. Being able to use all of the offensive prayers and swap spellbooks is so much DPS and utility, and it should be very doable to avoid the necessity for any farming with one of the later relics. Pocket Kingdom is good for bulk resource collection, but with mass boss farming, does that really matter anyways? Overgrown is great if you have limited amount of time to play for massive amounts of farmables every time you log in. For tier 8 relics, the final tier, these are actually all kind of disappointing. I was hoping to use the Guardian Relic if they brought them back the same as last leagues, but even the Guardian Horn has had the 2-tick resummon tech patched out. You could get the Guardian to attack the boss every time you attacked. Last Stand is the most changed and interesting relic with a huge stat buff when you die and complete invulnerability for a short period, but that ridiculous 3-minute cooldown effectively makes it a non-pick in my opinion. 3 minutes means you wouldn't even get to use this ability each boss kill. Instead, it would be every few KC. The Guardian Horn is just a super thrall for a minor DPS increase on the side. This seems even less good than last leagues, even besides the patched out 2-tick tech, because we can attack bosses through prayer, so there's less need for a minion that can use other styles. The special attack relic seems like by far the best choice, and this is what has changed my area pick from the Elflands to Asgarnia, with my only spec option being Burning Claws and Bone Dagger. Asgarnia for both Dog Sword and Torva over the Crystal Armor makes it a lot more sense. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I am a Dog Sword main. This leagues I think is one of the more well-rounded leagues to date actually. It has a little something for every type of player. Those who like to scale and grind out that Dragon Cup will find fulfillment here, and for those seeking a challenge, they will also be rewarded. Leagues is good for those who want to dip their toes into late game content if their main accounts aren't quite up there, and this league has a few encounters geared towards players who have a lot of PVM experience with the addition of Echo Soul and Echo Corrupted Gauntlet. I personally will not be playing for any of the rewards, but just to have fun and mess around with the Echo bosses. I want to also mention, don't forget if you want to calc anything with your DPS, all of the Echo items and relics are in Gearscape, as well as the ability to generate a setup with only items you have in your bank, or only items in your region to figure out what your BIS options are. It's super powerful. All right, what am I up to? What is my choice? So my regions are going to be Varlamore, Mauritania, and Asgarnia, and I'm going with a melee build. So Varlamore first, because it has a wide variety of all levels of content to farm. Moons is great early game gear, and Sulfur Nagas for leveling melee combat is insane. There is prayer training, house thieving, mining. I am mainly picking this for Echo's Soul boss grinding. Coliseum can be done early for GP. Varlamore also has a gem stall that has 2 uncut emeralds and 1 ruby, so you can get huge crafting XP and GP. I'm then picking Mory second. If I want to do solo, I'll obviously be needing a scythe from Mauritania, and I do enjoy solo top. I did Cox and Toa last leagues, so I don't really want to repeat that. Mori also gives me access to barrows for Darok bombing with the new Gloves of the Damned. My biggest goal is to 1 HP Darok bomb Echo Soul, assuming there's no chip damage. If there is, then at least I'll have Scythe, and I won't be miserable. Mori also gives you the Slayer Tower, Trouble Brewing for super fast fletching, Hunter, and Cooking, which I have a new guide on. GG's is here for the gloves, but I don't see myself grinding those for any kind of fun. Hallowed Sepulchre and Blood Shards are also in this region. As a melee build, you'd be trolling not to pick Mauritania. Asgarnia is my third choice. I was originally going to pick the Elf lands for the melee crystal armor, but because I'm being forced to take the spec relic here, I really need a powerful spec weapon, and the elves just don't have it. The Dog Sword is a decent DPS spec with the constant stacking 25s of Ancient God Sword, and can also reduce defense. Next is Torva drop is solid, and she should be fun to kill with melee, along with Echo Serb, who is also apparently of Master Tier difficulty. I also plan on doing a range build to experience more of the Echo bosses, assuming they are interesting, but I'm not fully planning it out like I did with my melee build. Likely it would be something like Fremi, Desert, and Asgarnia. A bit more thought into the combat relics I think would have gone a long way here. Magic getting shafted and ranged annihilating is a little bit strange. They also downplayed the Echo bosses on stream, which is a shame. Hopefully there's still some fun to be had with them. I'm still very excited. No matter what happens, I'll be having a lot of fun here for sure. And that's all I've got. Leave a like if you liked it and or subscribe. Thanks, guys.